Thank you for joining us for an episode of All About PR. If you're tuning in for the first time, on this podcast, we speak to experts from the field of PR and communication from across the world and bring you an interesting conversation on the subject every week. Communication is apparently a field that is dominated by women. Yet, when you move up in the ladder, their ranks thin out considerably and is certainly not representative of the women in the industry. How can you stem this flow? How can we make sure that there is more of a gender balance in the boardrooms in our industry? Where is the issue? Where do we start? Today, to address this specific issue for us, we have with us the dynamic duo from WICCI, that is Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Joining us today on the podcast is Kavita Lakhani, National President, and Anjali Mehra, the National Vice President of the WICCI PR and Digital Marketing Council. We are very happy to have Kavita joining us today. Kavita is also the Executive Director of Lintas Live and is one of India's most respected comms professionals with over 25 years in PR and digital marketing. Apart from spearheading the WICCI Council's plans to change the conversation in the industry, she is also an advisory board member of FinLab India, co-chair India of IPG Women's Network, Leadership Network, and part of Lintas's crisis response team, along with being a core team member of Lintas India's Sexual Harassment Committee. She is known for her work positioning companies, CEOs, senior management as leaders and change makers in an era of disruption and accelerated transformation. Kavita's expertise in corporate reputation building, marketing communication, internal engagement, and talent transformation and crisis management using digital traditional media makes her one of the most sought after senior counselors. By the way, Kavita also topped her batch in advanced program in strategic management from IIM Calcutta and has done an advanced program in digital marketing from IAMAI. Joining us also for the podcast today is Anjali Mehra, the National Vice President of WICCI PR and Digital Marketing Council, who is a seasoned hospitality brand marketing and communication specialist with nearly 3 decades of rich and varied experience. Anjali is also the Vice President Marketing of the Leela Palaces, Hotels and Resorts, a storyteller, a brand evangelist, and a communication strategist. Anjali is accomplished in devising integrated marketing and communication strategies and launching and repositioning brands, especially in challenging new and emerging markets. Passionate about nurturing talent, she has actively mentored both aspiring female leaders as well as helped luxury general managers hone their skills in personal branding. Anjali enjoys traveling and exploring new cultures, is an avid reader, loves writing and trend watching, and calls herself an experimental Instagrammer. So let's add them on. So welcome to the podcast, Kavita and Anjali. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, Tarun.
Now, I have been hearing a lot of buzz about WICCI on social media and through my network. It is great to see so much activity happening in this space. So before we get started, for the benefit of our listeners, can you tell us what is WICCI?
So I'll take that. So WICCI actually stands for Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And WICCI is an institutionalized national business chamber of commerce. I think what makes it really, really unique is the fact that it's India's only and I would say unique business chamber for women, of women and by women. And I think that was really what attracted me to this institution. And interestingly, it has a very, very large representation over 150 sectors. When I was learning or trying to know more about WICCI, I realized that it did not have enough representation from the communications industry. And that's when I said, it's time to change that.
That's the reason why there is a specific council for communication.
I just like to say here that the communications industry, it's showing double-digit growth. And when I say the communications industry, I mean the public relations, digital marketing, corporate communications, journalism, content, advertising, media buying, all those professions put together. So it's not limited to just public relations or digital marketing. And it's such a dominant industry. It's an industry that's changing. It's very dynamic. And also it's buzzing, So it made a lot of sense for this industry to be represented on the WICCI Council.
Absolutely. So tell me, I want to understand your personal motivation. What drew you to the WICCI Council? Why did you decide to join it?
Interestingly, I've always been keen to give back to the industry that I belong to. I've been blessed by having, a lot of great mentors and friends, men and women. And I think one thing that has not been so good is the fact that I see a lot of men at leadership positions. I do not see equal representation of women at leadership positions. And I felt that that was something that I personally wanted to change. And I must say, I've had a fantastic partner in Anjali, who's been a client as well as a friend for a very long time. She's a very, very respected woman leader. And it's been a pleasure partnering her in this journey.
Absolutely. Anjali, what about you? What drew you to the WICCI Council?
Yes, so in many ways, firstly, thank you, Kavita, for that compliment. I think that's a mutual feeling that we have. But I think one of the things that has motivated me a lot is that whole idea of giving back to the industry that kind of defines you in so many ways. I mean, I always call myself a storyteller, and I live and breathe stories, and the communication industry is built on that. And like Kavita said, while we see a large number of women represented in the communications industry, far more than the national average in other industries, the dropout rate is disturbing, because you do find that in leadership
Right.
roles we don't have that much of representation, and it gets even slimmer as you go into the boardrooms. And I'm a firm believer in balanced leadership. I think women bring a lot of different sensibilities which are important for growth of any company. And in the communications industry, it becomes even more relevant. And I wanted to make my humble contribution, and no better partner than Kavita and the 20 council members that we have. So I think it's a great platform, and I couldn't resist joining it.
Absolutely. That's so wonderful to hear. So, can you share with us, let's say, a personal story that has brought this into a focus for you?
So I'll share a personal story which has left a kind of an indelible mark in my entire career. And this was very early stages of my career. And I was at that time working for an airline. I won't take the name of the company. And the company went through a transition, and it was bought over by another airline company. And during that transition, I was a duty manager of a station based in one of the cities. And the first thing that I heard, or I was told, was that because I'm a woman, I could not be given the role of the head of the station management.
Really?
Yes. And I questioned that. And I had to work twice as hard and go on a 6-month probation to prove myself before the title was given to me. And I was the only woman station manager amongst a group of 56 male GMs. And what I was able to do at that point in time was it just kind of, stayed with me that I have to prove myself. I have to work double as hard as my male counterparts. But my station won for 3 years consistently the best station. And that kind of told me that why do we as women undersell ourselves? Why don't we stand up, or why are we not recognized for who we are, irrespective of our genders? Why does gender bias come into every decision that is made? And I think that little incident, which was almost like maybe about 20 years ago, it kind of stayed with me. And I have tried to therefore play my part and encourage women in leadership, mentor them personally wherever I can, and make that contribution wherever possible.
Awesome. That's lovely to hear. And I'm sure things have changed since then with every organization that you've been a part of.
It has in many ways, and in some ways still not. So we still have a lot of work to do, and that's why the WICCI Council for PR and Digital Marketing.
So, Kavita, I want to understand from you, what has changed in the last 12 years and what still needs work?
One thing really is very interesting. Earlier, we used to see very low representation of women professionals or women in leadership in most of the industries and most of the, like for example, finance. Now, or finance or STEM. And now I think that's completely changed. I can see the change so rapidly in the technology space for one, or in the finance industry. Banking and finance is showing a lot of change there. But I think what is not so good is that there are still industries where you have very low representation. So for example, energy, mining, manufacturing, real estate, warehousing, you will see very few. You will see a lot of, it's very, very male dominated still. So that's more from an industry lens. But I think think the overall problem that we have is that no matter which industry, including the communications industry, which has a fairly large number of women at the entry level, nearly 38%, like Anjali said, that we actually beat the national average on women at entry levels in the communication industry. The dropout level at mid-management is very, very severe. It goes to from 38%, the dropout goes to 11%. And at leadership, it's a very, very low percentage of 3% in boardrooms. And I think that's something that WICCI Council is going to try and address and try to work on.
Interesting. While I understand there's a lot of need for a change to be brought in and to reverse these numbers, I would like to see at least 98% of women in the boardroom rather than 2 to 3% that you specified. Don't you feel, of late, the last year or so, there has been a certain amount of outburst of all these women organizations that have come together? Why do you feel that this is happening now?
I think there's a lot more awareness in terms of what I believe is the true way of looking at it. It's all about celebrating the differences and uniqueness of both men and women. So it's not about just women and encouraging only women. It's about getting that sense of balanced leadership, partnership and leadership right at the topmost level. And I think a lot more changes have happened within society, within the economy. There's a genuine belief that this is good for the economy, this is good for countries, this is good for the future of humankind. And I think that's being ably demonstrated even if you see at the government levels. So for example, how New Zealand has actually taken off or tried to kind of manage the COVID crisis has been phenomenal. Or today, we are all celebrating the fact that, the US has almost equal representation at the topmost level, of government. So I think there's a very clear belief now across men and women that this is good for us. And that's why I think there's a lot more action around it, if you know what I mean.
It is lovely. The more people who speak about it, the better it is for all of us, I guess. So what are the WICCI objectives for your council? What are the objectives that you have set for yourself?
Our objectives are very, very clear. It is to enable, to equip, and to empower women in the communications industry. And this is important and covers a lot of other aspects. So whether it is, mitigating biases or changing perceptions or providing a platform for women to network, to express themselves, to be heard, and create that sustainable network where we can kind of encourage each other and build an ecosystem which promotes women leaders in the communication industry.
Tarun, can I just add something with me? I think one of the most important things that I'd like to emphasize on is that, we really like to address the leakage at the mid-management level. We really want to inspire talented women to stay in their careers and grow to the topmost, the highest levels of leadership. I think that's a very, very focused area that we'd like to move ahead in. And of course, as we go along, there's going to be a lot of activity, where we involve any woman who's entering the discipline of any across all the communications disciplines. But I think our focus as a council is going to be essentially on mid-management, aspiring women leaders who want to kind of find role models to look up to or want some help to really find their way right to the top.
Awesome. So how are you looking at achieving this?
So several activities we are working on: mentoring, upskilling, counseling, coaching, creating those platforms for networking, as we mentioned, and all targeted, like Kavita said, at that mid-management level, as to how do we help and support based on our own experiences and learnings and encourage women right up to the leadership positions. So several activities around these touch points.
And so what is your overall dream vision, say 1 year down the line? What is it that you're looking at achieving?
I think what would be really happy for us is that if we really are able to inspire, we are able to mentor a couple more women leaders and get them on the path of leadership. I think that would be a very happy thing for us.
Awesome. Since we're talking about role models, I want to know from both of you, who has been your role model, female role model in comms?
I wouldn't say she's a female role model in comms, but I'd say that she's the woman leader who's inspired me. And that's Indra Nui, hands down. She's been phenomenal in every possible way. Came from a humble background, not only a humble, but a conservative, traditional background. Beat all odds, defied all challenges that came her way, whether it was her family background or any of the obstacles that could have possibly come and had not allowed her to rise to the top. And today, I mean, she is absolutely inspirational.
She's an inspiration to a generation of women, I think.
Yes.
Anjali, what about you?
So I do admire Indra Nooyi a lot, and I think she's been a big inspiration in my life too. But closer home, I do want to mention a leader that who was our vice president marketing when I was very young in one of the organizations that I worked with. And the reason why I really look up to this lady is because she kind of gave you a canvas on which you could paint your story the way you wanted it, and she
Right.
was there to back you up all the way. And I learned so much from her, and these were early years of me trying to carve out a little niche for myself in this industry. And she really taught me the basics, and also besides that gave me that confidence that you should never be shy of expressing yourself, whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. So I think that was a very impressionable age for me, and to have somebody like that to mentor you was really something that I'll always be grateful for.
Would you want to mention her name?
Her name is Nellie Yong. She was the vice president marketing for Starwood, based in Singapore, but I used to report into her.
Awesome. It's always
I met Nelly, and she is a phenomenal person. I can vouch for that too. Lovely person.
awesome. Since you mentioned that, irrespective of your gender, you need to bring your A game to the table every day. I want to know from both of you, in this particular council, how are men contributing to it? Are they a part of the conversation for you, or is this going to be devoid of them joining you in this?
So, we'd really love men to participate in this conversation because, like I said, I think any organization or any industry benefits only when you celebrate the differences and uniqueness of both sexes. So it's not just one or the other. And the way men can really participate is joining us for our networking events. We'd be happy to open it up for both men and women. We are also going to be soon looking out for women mentors. We'd also love to have mentoring women who could benefit through their perspective. Anyone who can help us actually upskill our aspiring women leaders would be more than happy to actually have them, invite them for our sessions. And also, one more area where we are going to be actually focusing is really to understand what are the best practices across organizations that really work actively with their women leaders. So we would love to invite men in leadership to come and share their perspective. I think it will all be beneficial for both for men and women.
Absolutely. I think in order to bring about that meaningful change that we want to, it's important that it is an inclusive kind of a council that where men are more participative in the whole process. So absolutely, I think you cannot exclude men from the council. We will need to have them participate in a lot of initiatives that you're taking and help us there.
Wonderful. I think it will require the support of both the genders to be able to make that change, make a real change in the communication industry out there. So coming to your own organization, can you help us understand, how are you living this change in your own organization?
Absolutely. So I think this has been, like I said in the beginning, very close to my heart. Any organization that I have worked with, I have tried to mentor and kind of help and support the cause of women moving into leadership roles. And it's the same thing that I'm doing here in my current organization as well, working very closely with my communications team across the hotels and, trying to understand what their personal aspirations are and how we as a company can help and support them to move into these leadership positions. So absolutely very, very focused and actively involved in this.
Kavita, how about you?
I've been actually the co-chair of the Interpublic Women's Leadership Network for, I would say, 5-6 years now. And we really wanted to arrest the dropout rates at mid-management level. So we have invested a lot in mentoring activities for women leaders, aspiring women leaders. There are also policies which allow you to get women to stay on track with their careers, because a lot of women actually drop out because of personal reasons or family reasons. So I think we be careful to ensure that there's a balance of policy as well as mentoring, upskilling, And I think also a very conscious way of ensuring that our recruitment policies are aligned to what we want to be as an organization. We want to be an inclusive organization, not only in terms of diversity of genders, but also of other, so the LGBTQI initiatives are very strong across IPG companies.
Awesome. That's wonderful to hear. So, my last question, top 3 advice for women in communication.
So here's my top 3 advice. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't undersell yourself, and take credit when it is due.
Absolutely. That's very, very relevant and valid advice. Kavita, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I certainly think that if you want to reach the top, believe in yourself completely. Because if you believe in yourself, nothing is beyond your reach. That's one. And the second one that I'd really say is that look for a mentor. Look for people who can actually guide you and advise you. Take all the help. Lean whichever way you want to lean. Forward, backward, sideways, anywhere. But ensure that you're connected with a lot of people who can help you achieve your goal. And the last one is that really go for it. Nothing can stop you if you're determined. Keep learning and keep upskilling. That's the way you'll make it.
Wonderful. I think this podcast is going to inspire a lot of women in communication. Thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to us today.
Thank you, Tarun.
Thank you.
So that was Kavita Lakhani and Anjali Mehra, the National President and National Vice President of WICCI PR and Digital Marketing Council, sharing with us how they plan to put their weight behind the skewed gender ratio in the leadership ranks in the communication industry and correct it. Know more about them and the initiatives across all their very, very active social media pages. We do hope this time next year we see a healthy change in the leadership numbers they specified. Thank you again for tuning in today, and we will see you next week for another interesting conversation from the world of communication.